Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Marianne Petrie. I have a return guest. I have Dari Langone back on. She's going to give us an overview and an update on her case, and she wants to give out some warnings to people. And she would like to give some details on the family court's wrongdoings against her family. She will also be more detailed about the individual culprits from the JCCA foster agency. And, she wants people to know that, her daughter Rhiannon and her siblings and her 11-year-old niece are going through emotional torture since the beginning of this case. And for nearly 7 long years, it feels like they keep hitting a dead end. I welcome you back, Dari Langone, and
Thanks so much, Mary, and
I'm
thanks
glad to
again.
glad to have you back on, and I'm sorry about all of this, and you've got some warnings for people
Yes, I
that
do.
should know things from the very beginning. So I'm gonna let you
Absolutely.
take the platform. Thank you.
Right. Well, I know a lot of people are already privy to certain things, but some people aren't because should we say, they're new to being victimized by the system, by family court, ACS, PCS, but whatever, I forget what it's called.
Uh,
Um, each time the judge writes an order, if it's an order that totally goes against the family, seems like it's making the case worse, you automatically, first of all, you must get a copy of the order. Don't let your 18B, if you have an attorney through the court, a lot of them are flying monkeys for the court. They're scared to do right for you because they're going to be scolded by the court, by the judge. They have to go along with everything,
mhm.
all this wrongdoing. Insist on a copy. Go into the court records room. Call the court for the records. Do everything possible to get a copy and appeal it immediately. Immediately. None of my attorneys, and I had quite a few, made me privy to the fact that I could appeal.
Mhm.
And you must appeal each one. Because at
Quickly.
this juncture that I'm appealing I have an appeal in for what I was able to. The appellate attorney explained to me that they just can't take anything new, even though I may have not known at the time that I was able to do that. So it's imperative, please, people, really. And also, I also wanted to mention that you might be offered a court psychological test, which is done within the court. Please keep in mind, and I know this is a fact, that it's fixed. It's a fixed test. I did it. I wasn't aware at the time. It was the beginning of this nightmare. It was that November, so it was a few months later. It was over 5 hours. And so much of the information that the psychologist gets are the lies from the other end. So that's what they go by, not the one-on-one that they're doing with you right there. Because you see, it was like 2 sections. The section that was neutral, the IQ and just the basic conversations and questions, that actually came out good.
Mm.
It was the area, all the lies came in, which she sort of mushed together into a few papers, and that's why it didn't come out right. So I want people to know that don't waste your time, your energy, your mind space. It's not real.
Mhm.
And another thing, if you can afford an attorney when they first start harassing you, please don't think that even if they come to you and they're as polite as can be, the workers, they're all in on it together.
Mhm.
Please get an attorney if you can immediately. And if you can't afford to, see what you could find out. See, maybe you could get a pro bono, because there are attorneys, and one of my attorneys that, my retained attorneys, who was actually worked as assistant DA in the Bronx years back. And he also works within the criminal court. He's a criminal defense attorney. He told me he said, as soon as like people start to get harassed by them, and let's say, for instance, he jumps into it, he could easily get rid of them. There's legal ways before you really totally put your foot in the quicksand. Because once they remove your child, I mean, look at my situation. And worse yet, it's not even like she's with a grandmother who doesn't like me and she's trying to like say, well, she's better off with me. She's with these two freaks of nature. And he's, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to think about it, but yeah, I would call him a pedophile, because if he was looking at child pornography, like a couple of his relatives told me, then that's just the next step. And she's with a deranged woman. And you don't, like I said, if you can get an attorney, please do so as fast as you can. And so to get into the judge, we'll talk a little bit about Judge Jacqueline Dean. She's one of what they call cancers of the court. That's what they call because most of them are, they're crooked, they're corrupt. And she's one of the worst. And I honestly believe that's why they wanted her on my case. So much wrongdoing, so much corruption, period. But the way they allowed my daughter 2 times to go out of state, and it wasn't a proper ICPC, is very against the law. And Judge Juan, it's like Judge Juan was the judge toward the beginning. So it was Judge Juan, then all of a sudden I saw Judge Dean, then Judge Juan, then Judge Dean. Now I'm finding out that you're not supposed to have 2 judges, and it seems like I did. And I know I'm not the only case that has that in around all about judge. And when I asked my attorney at the time, like, is Judge Juan going to be? No. Well, she's not a trial judge, or she is a trial judge, or judge. It was like they talk a bunch of word salad at times.
Right. It's almost like double talk. I call it double speak.
Well, because when you lie, it's hard to keep a story straight.
Right.
When you tell the truth, there's only one way to tell it.
And they're like, yes means no and no means yes. And they're talking about verbiage that if you're not an attorney, I always tell people to buy a Black's Law Dictionary, and you will learn this double talk, double speech.
Yeah, I advise people to put their head in the law books if they have the patience. If they, I'm not saying you have to. Some people, have anxiety, let's say, and they can't concentrate all the time. But try. If you do, that's great.
Yeah, because what?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt. But like with Black's Law Dictionary, you find how they twist words around. Fascinating.
And if you want to hear something, I mean, it's not funny, but some people might actually laugh. If you want to laugh just for a minute, one of my attorneys, he was my last attorney, 18B attorney, court-appointed attorney. He said to me before, when I say testify, I almost have to either laugh, cry, or throw up. Testify, like, who did I kill?
Right.
I never even screamed at my daughter.
Right.
He said to me, listen, when you testify, something to take that, when you testify, do not roll your eyes and do not throw your hands up. And I'm like, Fred, when do you ever remember me rolling my eyes or throwing my hands up? I might have an attitude. Yeah. But no, I don't know if I ever rolled my eyes in my life. Like, he mixed me up maybe with a different woman.
Makes you wonder.
A different case he has. They have 1 million cases each. I don't know how many cases, but it's like you have to be made a certain way to be a lawyer in that court. Because attorneys that I've spoken to, like one attorney, I asked him, Mickey, I said, he's an attorney for numerous years. He's an older man. I haven't spoken to him. I don't even know if maybe he retired by now. Mickey, help me out. Could you cut? He said, Dari, oh God, if I have to, he was almost crying, but please, walking through those doors, it gives me a migraine. I can't stand looking at them, because he's a real attorney. He doesn't want to go into family court because he knows how they are.
Mhm.
So I said, I can't pressure this man. He's up there in age,
Oh,
and mhm. And as far as Judge Jacqueline Dean, like I said, she's one of the largest cancers of the court. She happens to be gay, and I very much respect, and I actually love gay people because I have a couple of good gay friends,
yeah, me too.
and they are so fun loving and great. And it's sad how she gives the gay community a bad name when it's the person, not the fact that you're gay.
Mhm.
It's just, and not to, I mean, she's a Nazi. She's a Nazi. She's a modern day Nazi.
Mhm.
How she can screw families like that, not think anything of it. Like, almost like it's not just for the money, but if you could go as far as hurting people, hurting anybody for the monetary gain, you have to be a sadist.
Mhm.
Because I'd sooner be homeless than hurt any family for money.
Mhm.
I'd live on a park bench in Central Park. What I'm saying is I would never in a million years do that to a family. I can imagine that.
Mhm.
And like the monsters that have my daughter, to say quickly, that's his legacy. This monster's legacy is the money. He didn't care about anything. He used the system to kidnap my daughter along with his insane wife.
Mhm.
And that's where his money's coming from. And he's really very dumb, beside the point, and never got into that. And he totally was fine with my child, my innocent child, being his cash cow. When you get men out there that are like, I have uncles that are businessmen, and they don't even have an ego, and they should be proud that they were poor. They grew up poor and worked themselves up. And this monster is almost glad with the fact that he just wants the money. He don't care what happens. What
Right.
happened?
Because there's an incentive when they take your child, they get paid.
Oh, the system, yeah. Yeah.
And I think the
Mhm.
public doesn't realize where their tax dollars are really going.
And my father paid, a lot in taxes. And I say to myself, if he was still with us, because he passed away weeks before this terrible thing where they took
Mm.
Rhiannon, he would have probably passed away all over again of a heart attack.
Mhm.
Um, he loved her so much. And it, I don't know what he would be just mortified with this, mortified. And like I said, that as far as judges, you must get a copy of the order. You have to. And if your 18B attorney says, all right, so I'll send it to you next week, you have to be very, very persistent, because that's what's going to let you appeal it. And
You
you
know,
only have like 45 days or something.
well, in here, well, the state, but it's usually 15 days. I don't know if people realize that sometimes you have a short time to appeal. So what I always did was appeal the next day
Exactly.
because, I think you could go to a prothonotary and ask for the order. I could be wrong. I know every state's
Whatever
different,
works.
but
Yeah,
get a copy of that order and don't wait for them to send it to you.
right. Because if you depend on your attorney, and like I said, they're flying monkeys for the court, you don't always get satisfaction on
You
that.
know what I was thinking? I always put my appeals in without even getting the order because I was going that fast.
Wow, makes sense.
Because I
You
was
have to be
there.
up on everything.
Yeah, I mean, I heard everything. I took notes on everything, so I knew what to appeal and what the judge did
Right.
wrong.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mary Ann. It's important they take notes. If they
Yes.
can't record or, do what you can, please do what you can, but you have to take notes. Keep it in a separate notebook. Because some things you'll say, oh my God, I forgot. What did she say? What was that lie? And you have to go back and look at it. So you could work with rebuttaling it in your own way.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I always did. In fact, now that you mention it, I
Mhm.
never really waited for the order. I just went down and put the
Good
appeal in.
idea.
It
Very good
doesn't
idea.
it didn't hurt anything, didn't hurt my case.
Right, right.
So you're just letting we have the superior court if you're gonna appeal,
Mhm,
so you
mhm. Right.
just do it.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. And just to mention, I know I mentioned names last time connected to the JCCA foster agency here in Brooklyn. And I think they also have an office in the Bronx and
Mhm.
wherever else. That I'm not saying they're the only corrupt agency. I know a lot of them are, but I can't talk so much because it's the JCCA that will connect it to me. So to tell you they are, first of all, nobody can work for them unless they are willing to totally wreck families.
Mhm.
I really believe they give some kind of aptitude test or something, and they score it by who seems very cold and
Mm.
very dense and very mean. And those are the ones they hire. It sounds a little weird, but I
Yeah.
really believe that because, I mean, yeah, there were a couple people that were very human and they left. It's funny,
Uh-huh.
those are the ones that, like I told you, Cindy Justin was one of the workers. She was so nice. And she quit,
Mm.
which I'm not surprised at all because she was so nice. She didn't want part of that terrible corruption. And she obviously, when she saw what was going on, or she heard things, I'm sure, within the JCCA agency, she heard workers talking or insinuating things. That's when she ran.
Mhm. Because
And
she had
that's
a
why I said,
conscience.
right. She couldn't even look at me the last time I saw her at one of the JCCA meetings. And I knew that's because God knows what she heard. I mean,
Mhm.
common sense dictates that. She couldn't even look me in the face. And Cindy always would talk to me, always with a smile, very respectable person.
Oh.
Raised religious, her family were from the islands
Mhm.
and a churchgoer, just a very sweet girl. And that's why she left.
Yeah,
I was
this
waiting.
yeah, oh,
2
yeah.
weeks later, Cindy's not here anymore. And I'm like, I knew it. I
Mhm.
know Cindy couldn't last.
Wow.
Yeah. And to say that, I just want to read something here. The JCCA, I mean, people could Google things, but the mission statement says one of the main things are repair the world child by child. They mean damage the world child by child. That's what they really mean to say. They don't repair anything.
Mhm.
Um, they say they seek to build strong connections and relationships among family members, closely monitoring kinship and foster homes. Really?
Mhm.
They knew that he hit my daughter, that monster from New Jersey, when she was in New Jersey with them. A case was called in from the therapist. She's also, like I said, a mandated reporter. And they were fine with that. They didn't remove her. They didn't check. They didn't care. When it came into court from the therapist, because the therapist even told me she didn't want her there. It's documented. And when the court got that, they must have destroyed that as fast as they could, because they didn't want my daughter removed.
Because she brought in revenue.
That's right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Hmm.
Oh, how terrible.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that they call him Judge Richter. It's Mr. Ronald Richter. He's the CEO. I mentioned him last time of the JCCA. And he was a judge, I think it was the Bronx or Queens. Um, who is another demon.
Mhm.
He writes op-eds, he writes in newspapers, all lies. How they love the children and they want them to be with their families and what? It's like, my mouth is open. Are you serious? Well, you know what? Those op-eds are gonna hear from me shortly, and they're gonna fix your lies.
Mhm.
He's he said he claims, I don't know if it's true or not, he has an adopted daughter. And I said to myself, well, if he does, he wouldn't want her in the situation my daughter's in and so many children are.
Mhm.
Well, maybe he didn't adopt a daughter. Maybe it's a lie. He lies about everything else. Who knows if that's not a lie?
And if it is truth, it's probably some child that was taken from some fit, loving family.
That's right, Mary. And you know what? True. Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe it sounds disgusting to even say, but maybe that gives him excitement. They are demonic. They're beyond what you could even, there's no name for them. I could call them devils, demonic, vampires. That's not good enough.
Mhm.
I, it's like they inject this themselves into your existence.
Mhm.
You would never know these horrible people if it wasn't for these phony cases. I would never cross the path of such evil and know them at all.
Right.
I would keep my distance from such evil.
Mhm. And like you said, people don't know what to do when these situations arise in their lives. And I hate to say it, but you serve as a warning. I serve as a warning to
Yes,
people.
please, because I can't see what's happening. Do you know how many children, of course, you know, Mary, and
Mm,
that were tortured and killed because they weren't removed and they should have been removed?
mhm,
Numerous in every state. Look at that cute little girl. Every time I think of her, I cry.
mm,
Harmony Montgomery.
mhm,
Oh my God. The judge gave her to a monster of a father who had a record taller than us. He knew what he was, but yet he gave her to him. And of course, no surprise, he killed her. He wound up killing this little 5-year-old. This is what they do. And his brother called CPS and said, I was just there right from the street. He was so nervous about it. She's black and blue. They went, they checked, they said, everything's fine. Really? So they're responsible for all these children's deaths,
mhm,
period. It seems they remove the ones from the children from the good homes,
mm,
and they keep a lot of the children in the horrible homes, who, if I was a saying CPS, ACS worker, I don't know if I'd even wait for the judge. I'd want to pick them up and run out to
mhm,
save their life.
mhm.
I, I'm just, I don't understand.
No, I don't
So that,
either.
yeah,
It seems like these judges are taking these kids away from the good fit parent and
absolutely.
giving them to the abuser or, a foster family,
Exactly.
and then they're bypassing kinship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Now, not mentioning names, a man I know, he's also affected by his ex-wife. She's lousy and he has a couple of children. And when so much of this happened, she was actually pregnant. And he was so sad. And he says, now another baby's going to come and I'm going to have a hard time and all of this. And he's passing in the court. And I'm not sure who it was involved, but a couple of the culprits, he hears them talking as he sort of walks by and he's silent. And one's laughing to the other and said, quote, he doesn't even know if he's having a girl or boy. She didn't even give birth yet, and they're laughing.
uh,
Could you imagine? They literally love this. They love this. their miserable, horrible, useless lives. They actually, it's some form of psycho overcompensation for what they lack. Seeing others cringe with misery.
Mhm. And I truly believe they're personality disorder, sociopath, and they identify with the personality disorder in the courtroom, whether it be the color of suit or whatever that they can identify with, the way they're talking, or they're bought off.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But like, what's the root of it? Like you said, sociopath, psychopath. The root is that's what they are, because there's no amount of money in this universe that could make me do something like that to one family, ever. Like I said, I'd rather be homeless because I'm human. They're
Mhm.
not human.
Mm-mm.
They're really not human.
I just well, you and I have talked, I've said, CPS should just be shut down. They serve no earthly purpose. They're just a bunch of,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Right.
pests on this earth that pestilence serves no earthly purpose.
That's why, I knew of a few people that started working for them, and within a very, very quickly, they quit because they saw what was going on. These people really didn't know. They weren't aware of how crooked it is. They thought they were there to help children. And even a cousin of mine, she worked with them, I don't know, it was under a year, but it must have been 6, 8 months. I don't, and and Katie said, I'm out of here. I
Mhm.
am out of here. Oh my God. And then people write their own articles about it.
I had a friend who she said her sister was working for them, and she only lasted less than a year.
See
She
that?
couldn't she didn't feel comfortable
Oh
removing
yeah. If you
kids.
Google it, people come up and say, I couldn't take it. Oh no, I can't. Yeah. One woman, I think she wrote a book, or like when you Google, I forget her name. I have it down in one of my notebooks. Like when you go onto the site, it's so many pages you can't even read it. There must be, I don't know how many hundreds of pages she wrote
Mm,
about her experiences, and she had to get out fast. It was under a year, like 10 months she worked with them.
mhm,
Hmm.
and that was enough for her.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
I'd rather work at a gas station than work for them.
Of course. Of course. I'd rather clean toilets any day.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. I make $1 a week.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
just stating that.
Where do you stand now? Because I know you had talked about going back down to Florida.
Yeah. Well, also my daughter's going to be going back,
Mhm,
and there's some things that have to be taken care of down there. And I have other plans in trying to tear this thing open. And with all the crookedness, with all of this, it's just the thought each and every day, 24/7, who my daughter, the creatures my daughter's with, is sickening, that I have to literally psych myself up for my own health
mhm,
to try to also like go off and think of other things, or just do other things, or listen to music and try to concentrate. I like the old 60s and 70s, and
mhm,
at night I'll do that to just, or try to meditate,
mhm.
just do what I can to keep breathing, to tell you the truth, because I'm petrified,
Mhm,
petrified for her. And by hook or crook, she's gotta get away from them.
mhm.
She's gotta get away from them. It's, I mean, oh,
And to put you through that, and I'm so sorry they're doing this to you.
oh, there's no words for them. There's no words. How for a whole year she pretended she was a friend. She would call every week, whatever it was. We would talk on the phone. I never imagined in my wildest nightmares that she was a creature, that she was so deranged. Because I mean, we all know like numerous amounts of couples, families, and they're just run-of-the-mill people. I never thought I'd meet evil up close.
Mm-mm.
Never, you know, and I'm scared for my daughter, and
Mhm.
it's just by hook or crook, she has to get out of there, and there has to come a point where they get their just desserts on this, you know,
Mhm.
legally. Um, and just the feeling like they're okay with being hated by so many people. I mean, I wouldn't want to feel that I'm so intensely hated by anybody, especially an ordinary person. I don't mean a demented freak like her.
Mhm.
Yeah, she hates me because she's a demented freak. She
Mhm.
did what she did to my family. She did what she did. She's doing what she's doing to my daughter. And the hate toward me, you would think I took her kid. That's how demented she is.
Now
Mhm.
you were gonna come up with a missing person sign
Yes,
as well.
yes. Now, I wanted to mention that my daughter's father, who he's on very strong medication. He's a very passive person. He's a very soft kind of person, but he's schizoaffective, so he's on strong medication. But I did tell him, you know, I have to know Rhiannon minute to minute. When I say that she's okay, because when the cops went to the door and she said she's out there living her life. So his despicable father called him back about a week ago in the morning and left a message. He's clueless. First of all, he was never a father. How could he be a grandfather?
Mhm.
Um, he said, Rhiannon's fine. Fine, yeah, right. How fine is she? Do you want to do a FaceTime with her? He said to Philip, who's Rhiannon's dad. And I'm like, all right, well, that sort of maybe has given me a cue in on someone saw her face. And at the same time, he has the audacity. Do you want to like it's so nonchalant
Mhm.
being involved? He's one of the culprits in this. He's an accomplice to this.
Mm.
And I left him a message. I says, it doesn't matter how old you are. I will see you in a real court.
Mhm.
You despicable monster, you. He was never a grandfather to my daughter. My father was a grandfather. He was
Mhm.
a wonderful grandfather, you know, and just to say, Marianne, you have to hear this one. Going back, oh my God, a few years before my daughter was stolen, before they removed my daughter, she had bronchitis. She used to get a lot of that. And that's why she stayed home from school a lot. And that's why a case was first called in. Quote, they called it educational neglect, because I don't send sick kids anywhere.
Mhm.
And she would get a lot of that. And he actually called Philip. This is her so-called grandfather. He's not a grandfather. He's a piece of garbage, and that's a compliment. He
Mhm.
said, listen, I'll send her a vaporizer, but I want you to know that that's going to be her Hanukkah gift. Marianne, think how morally sick that is. How immoral, amoral, call it what you like, that is to say that's her gift. And I said to myself, that really told me he is a scum. He
Oh, yeah.
is scum. And here he went along with the kidnapping. Mhm.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention a few people. Like I said, I don't have any documents in front of me, but um, I have a plethora of documents and proof of what they did and didn't do to make things worse. The JCCA agency, Miss Nassimi, who is she the supervisor there? I think she's, um, every time we even called a couple red flag meetings, it was like she would look at us like she was a cadaver. We call her, that's her nickname, the cadaver.
Uh,
She'd look at us, expressionless, like the night of the living dead,
oh.
not caring what we were telling her. They're doing this, they're telling my daughter to do this. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like listening to the family complain
Yes.
about a situation. I certainly look into it.
Mhm.
I certainly look into it. And when I told her to please change my worker, this was at the beginning because the Sharon Burrell was a disrespectful nightmare. She refused to help me on that. And that's just one of the things, numerous things. And to mention the Sharon Burrell, she testified at the first trial, even to say the word trial is ridiculous, 2018. And at the time, the attorney that was doing that, doing the trial with me, I retained. And every time he questioned her, she'd fold her arms and turn her back toward him with such intense disrespect. And she answered him like nasty. And then this time she went, I don't know. And he said, hold her in contempt of court. I can't go through this, because he's a very like intense guy, intense
Yeah.
attorney. And Judge Juan was there at the time. She didn't hold her in contempt, which she should have,
Mm-hmm.
because her actions were just absolutely so disrespectful. But when the other side, of course, questioned her, she was nice to them because she's on their side.
Well,
She was just, she wouldn't answer questions, or it was, I don't know. And then when she turned her back to him, oh my God, to do that to an attorney.
oh, I've
Where's
seen it.
respect for yourself?
Yeah, I've seen that.
And this is a JCCA worker doing this. And then with the fraud upon the court, they were all right there. They were in on it. It was Miss Rabinowitz, but also another horrible person,
Mm-hmm.
JCCA worker at the time. She was right there in court. Amanda Greer Katz, who was the ACS attorney at the time, and Amy Serlin, who I mentioned before, of course, who is my daughter's attorney, who is a monster from the gates of hell.
Oh,
They were all in on this. They knew while Caitlin Harrison was sitting there, a social worker, saying that she was Lisa Hartley, a different social worker, they were totally aware. They were, and this is JCCA, this is what they were involved with. And yet on a decision, JCCA did their, due diligence for this family. And I'm the one who screwed up, Marianne, when they're the corrupt
mm-hmm.
criminals. They're the criminals. They're the same as the court. The court is the same as ACS. They're all in it together. Period. And I said, why didn't Lisa Hartley come in herself? Obviously, there was a reason. Either she didn't want to go that deep, and maybe then I first said maybe she's not aware they're using her name. Then I began to think, I believe she was aware they used her name. Maybe she didn't have the time to come in at that time, and they needed the worker who was seeing my daughter at the time, was saying she was seeing my daughter, to make it look good with that nonsensical ICPC that wasn't even properly a proper ICPC. They wanted to get her to Florida ASAP.
Mm.
And I don't know why they thought that getting her to Florida was going to have things quiet on our end. It's Florida. I don't care if it was Africa.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be doing what I'm doing. And they just had to get her there as soon as possible. And before you knew it, Judge Juan signed an order. This was at the summation. I believe it was at the summation, but I'll look into that, stating that she's not to leave New Jersey to go to Florida. Well, guess what Judge Jacqueline Dean did? They called it modifying the order. No, she played with that order, allowing my daughter to go to Florida, after Judge Juan wrote an order that she's not to leave.
How do you spell his name, Judge Juan?
Judge Juan, her name is Lillian Juan, W-A-N, like it sounds.
Okay.
Like I said, she set up a date was June 20th, I believe, for the decision. And guess what? Like I said last time, Dean was there, Judge Jacqueline Dean, because Lillian one took a different judgeship. She can't be here to leave her decision because they wanted the cancer of the court, or one of the cancers of the court, because Judge one wasn't as deeply is evil or deeply corrupt as Judge Jacqueline Dean. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a real big mess.
And she knew what she was doing.
Mhm.
She knew what she was doing, of course. And to say not, to be honest with you, she's not exactly the sharpest knife in the bunch.
Mhm.
She's not. She's not. You could tell by the way she holds conversation. She's dumb.
Mhm.
And she didn't earn a judgeship. None of them do. They were appointed there.
Yeah.
It's all money under the table. It's all many, many years ago. You had to earn that to
Mhm.
become a judge. You really had to go through a lot, you know, to deserve that judgeship. And this monster 2015 was put on that stand, was put there. Just another one to screw families. And I'm going to take care of her whatever legal way I possibly can. And she's just, oh, she's repulsive in every way, shape, and form.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And Amy Serlin, my daughter's attorney, right at the beginning, she said to the monster who's holding my daughter, ask the mother for guardianship. The first week.
oh,
Could you imagine? And two of my attorneys, she said, behind my back, my attorneys told me, that woman is totally crazy. She was starving her child. And I said to my attorneys, really? There were times that I took my last to go get bird seed to feed the pigeons. Well, one was sick. I ran him to the vet with the money I had in the house, and he needed work done. But that's important. I believe in saving lives. I'm going to starve my child?
yeah.
That's incomprehensible to me.
Mhm. I don't know where these people's minds are. It's obviously on the money.
On the money, but like I said, it roots from the fact that they are demons.
Mhm.
Because like I said, what's money compared to lives? It's so much more important than money, but we see it like that because we're human. And the agency, I'm still talking to the man from accreditation. I'm speaking to him on Wednesday. I'm not going to mention his name because they're going to do an internal investigation on JCCA. I want them, not the whole JCCA. I want the foster agency closed. And if I have to do anything to have that happen, I will do it. Because they should not be there with their lies, their falsehoods, their viciousness.
How did you find out they were going to do an investigation?
Well, because we contacted various people, but the accreditation, we explained to them exactly what's going on. And then of course they want information, they want paper, you know, information, they want different things to view. No problem, we have plenty. And we gave them what we gave them, and we're going to speak on Wednesday, and he might ask me for something else. But if it's the last thing, one of the last things I do, aside from making sure my daughter gets out of that damn house, that
Right.
crazy house, is to see the JCCA foster agency not get accredited anymore. And they're getting a lot of, they have a lot of donors. Guess what? I'm dealing with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's going to know what they are, what they did, and I want them shut down, what they're doing to families.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. And I think I mentioned last time, this Evans Castellon was one of my first workers from JCCA. It was always written that they see me monthly. He saw me once. I was never seen after that. He came to my house once at the beginning.
Mm.
He called me after that and says, I can't get parking. I says, I don't know what to tell you. I know it could be hard around there. All right, let's forget it next time. There was never a next time. He
Oh.
would work with the Sharon Burrell, who's a criminal in the worst way. I told her she'd walk around with her cell phone with a note from my daughter in her cell phone. She was very friendly with the horrible Roldans, the ones who have my daughter, too friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Now I surmise things. I may not have the full proof, but I do surmise that they were too friendly.
Mm-hmm.
Too friendly. She was too friendly with them. I wouldn't be surprised if there was bribery involved. I cover all ground, believe me, Marianne.
Yes.
And this is the same person I'm saying that who turned her back to my attorney, who was very disrespectful. He was so angry. He says, you hold her in contempt. I can't take this crap. He was really very mad.
Mm-hmm.
And Judge One did not hold her in contempt. Obviously, if she felt comfortable enough to act like that, she knew she could, that the judge would not hold her in contempt. I mean, it's only common sense, right, Marianne?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to act like that in court? Not that I would want to, but she knew she could. Now, she calls herself Sasha Alexandra Levitskaya, which was the supervisor of JCCA, because it's a revolving door with them. Supervisor Al, supervisor working at the defenders. It's like you can't keep up.
Mm-mm.
They're in circles. They're in circles. Now this one's working for the ACS. She used to be with J. So this Alexandra Levitskaya was a supervisor, and she's the one that told me when I walked out crying, shh, be quiet. That's what you say to a mother who's crying, right? Now she's working for the, she's something about a social worker for Brooklyn Defenders or something like that. She was very transparent because she's another one who looked like she was like dead.
Yeah.
Like you look at them, they're emotionless and it's creepy.
Mm-hmm.
Creepy, creepy, creepy. All they do is this. When they're listening to you, telling them, like you're crying from the rooftops, help my child, help my child.
Yeah.
There they are. Creepy.
Yeah. I had two creepy ones as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this Rabinowitz was another one. I mean, she's not the only one. Lauren Glassman. Lauren Glassman looked like it was so rehearsed at this last trial. And she was also a JCCA supervisor, I believe. And you could tell the way it was almost like she was reading it, totally rehearsed. They must have gone over it with her plenty before to make it like they were reaching out to me and making me look like the wrong one, and they were doing their due diligence, which was not true. I emailed them, like I said, about 150 times and barely ever got a response. The only time they would contact me was when they needed me to sign a HIPAA, something to do with my daughter. Then guess what? That stopped. They no longer needed my permission. I wonder why. Because they were taking it upon themselves. Maybe someone was signing my name. I don't know. But I don't put anything past them. I don't put anything past them. God, Marian, were you going to say something?
I just had, it brings back when we had a caseworker on the stand. It was the first one she was the one that screamed like a banshee at me for 2 hours one day. Then she came back another 2 days later for an hour and a half. She screamed at me some more. But she had used the word fixated on the witness stand. I'm trying to count how many times. I have it counted out in transcript. Of course, I can't remember, but it had to be around close to 30 times using the word fixated. Well, I'll say 20 times just to be fair. But yeah, it's a total power trip for them on a witness stand.
Oh yeah. And this Amy Serlin, when I was on the stand and in her summation, it was all lies, all making me look like a criminal. She's the criminal.
Yes.
But you know what she called me? I was very self-serving. Well, who was I serving if not myself? I was there telling the truth.
Right.
I'm self-serving? Like what?
Yeah, I got yelled at by a judge for telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
he said I don't wanna talk about me, but, he had said, "Do you believe everything the caseworker said is a fabrication?" I said, "Yes, I do."
That's
And
right.
then he yelled at me, said, "You're appalling on the stand." Well, yeah, asked
He
for
didn't
the
know how to
truth.
handle it.
No,
The
uh,
lies.
yeah. It's like, I'm
He
telling
could
you.
he couldn't say anything logical to you, like, well, because I blah blah blah, so you're appalling. He was like caught
Yeah.
because you were telling the truth. You know they're criminals. He knew you knew they're criminals. So
Mhm.
this is how he reacted.
And
This
God
was the
dealt
reaction.
with him very quickly, rather. God dealt with him very quickly.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's some good news for
Yeah.
today.
Well,
Wow, that's
I
great.
remember being at the mall, and I got a phone call from my friend a couple months later, and,
That's great.
she
I
she
love
said
it.
she said, "Did you know he died?" I said, "What?" "No." I fell to my knees and I yelled. I don't know what people at the mall thought.
I can't help it. It's so funny to
I know,
me.
I said, "Thank you, Jesus." And my kids were so happy.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
that is too funny.
yeah. So God works fast. Have
Ah.
your faith in God,
Mm. I
'cause,
never thought I would pray for such awful things to happen to certain individuals.
well, I was saying, "God, you deal with them, get them out of my life. You deal with them, get them out of my life." And he
Mhm.
did. He did.
Right.
As well as the
Wow.
opposing attorney's wife, he's dealing with her.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes.
He's dealing with her right now?
Oh, yeah, well, he started dealing with her back in 2015 because I was saying, "Oh god, she's like I've
That's
never been
great.
treated so
If
horribly
you
by."
say Dear Ling, I assume she's sick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
with the big C.
nice.
Now, not that I would wish that I was just saying,
No,
God.
no, I don't either.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
just
either. But on them, yes, I think
yeah,
the big
I
C
said
is a very
yeah,
positive thing. Yes,
yes.
I
I said,
do.
"God, you deal with her and get her away from me." I've never
Good.
seen such a banshee demon scream,
Oh,
yell in a courtroom,
oh,
and
that is so nice.
oh, yeah,
I
my
love
attorney couldn't
hearing that.
stand her either. So, yeah,
Wow.
but, justice comes in weird ways,
That's a
people.
celebration, Mary
Mhm.
Ann. I would
Yeah.
have got a nice cake and
Yeah.
said, yay, across it with candles,
Well, now that you bring that up, when I was having
Mhm.
my son's 16th birthday party, and I didn't have it recorded because my husband was working out of town, my current husband, who is Superman, I might add. But we were singing happy
Yeah.
birthday, and I don't know, my son jumped out of his seat and he states, "I hate my dad's big, fat, ugly attorney, and I'm glad the judge is dead." And
Oh,
I'm like
God.
going, dang it, I didn't have that on video I didn't
Oh,
record it
God.
because I was busy, serving the other kids cake and ice cream.
No, this is I'm glad to hear this.
Oh,
Really.
yes,
It's
there's
nice. Let
justice
it
in
keep
other
on
ways.
going. Let
Yes.
it keep on
Yeah.
going. Like a fungus. Let it get to all of them who deserve it.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And
I didn't
what
mean to
another
interrupt you.
no, no, no. Another thing that Judge Jacqueline Dean did, Colleen Zitman, one of my court appointed at the time, 'cause I always change because I really thought that someone was going to do right. Oh boy. So that's why I had a number of attorneys. Um, we were supposed to show up for some kind of hearing to do with my sister, why my sister couldn't get my daughter, or why my sister, something to that effect. And I was in the courtroom, and when it's like a couple of them were a little bit late, my attorney, another attorney, and they said it was something to do with the train. Now, for about a half hour, she was scolding them about being late because she wanted to use up the time. She didn't want to get to what they were really supposed to talk about. So isn't it just simple to say, you got to really try next time, blah, blah, blah. How long does that take to tell them, Marianne? It had to be maybe a half hour
Mhm.
because she wanted to use the time. I really think this was fixed.
Mhm.
This was fixed.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I
It
think
was
it was
like,
a setup.
Colleen,
Mhm.
don't you? And she has some kind of speech impediment, and God knows that's not why I'm saying this. She's just a very horrible person, so that's why I'm bringing that up. You can't do that. You're late. What happened with the trip? And she's saying like all this word salad, like we were talking about before. And then she turned to this other attorney, said, Mr. Dahi. She called him Dahi. I think his name was Daly, Mr. Daly. That was the monster's attorney. It's not right to be late. And when you're late, she just wanted to use up so much of the time to get rid of it because she didn't want to get down to what she was supposed to. I was never properly served. I mean, as far as orders of protection, I believe they're circulated. Yes. I think they just changed the dates. They're circulated. And most parents do have that. There's a reason they have that. Because they want to keep you from your child so they could keep making their money. What kind of order of protection? Doesn't make sense. I was never a danger to my child, any child. I was very good to my daughter. And it's with them too. They're the criminals, the two that have my daughter, and they have an order of protection against me. Well, I'll have you know, there's still a lot of ins and outs I can do with that order of protection. And the times they threatened me with jail, they knew I didn't care. So then they stopped because that was a scare tactic that didn't work. That's what they do, Marianne.
Oh, yes, I was threatened with that. Yeah.
A friend of mine, she's being affected. Her little boy was taken. She's one of the best mothers in the world. And would you believe her ex-husband left the country on a fake passport with that little toddler? And they still see him on Skype, like he didn't do anything wrong. And he has a lot of money and they want her to give him money monthly. They want child support from her. And he has so much money.
What about the Hague Conference? How come she didn't get him to come back here?
You see, I don't know. I know she's a very intelligent woman and very proactive. So I know she's doing everything possible, but they're so crooked.
Yeah.
But that's why she hasn't seen her son in a couple of years.
Oh no.
It's horrible. And the father's attorney, that lowlife, he sits there saying, the baby has no shoes. She don't even give her child support. Like, what? She's a working woman. He's the one that's considered on the rich side. And he's in his country. And he's just being spiteful, wanting child support. And they're going along with that and telling her she's going to jail. She owes him $10,000 back money. What?
See, that's another arm of domestic violence that is extended in the courts.
It's emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also emotional abuse on that parent, legal abuse on that parent, and as well
legal
as
abuse syndrome. Remember, Marianne?
Yes,
that's
definitely.
Right.
And child psychological abuse on that child.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. They hate children. It's not that they just don't care. They hate them. You have to, if you're going to allow them to die in homes they should be removed from, and you're going to take them from loving parents and not care if they're getting abused by foster people. How could you hate a child? They're so innocent and defenseless. It's like hating a kitten or a puppy or a very, or 100-year-old person. I don't know what it is, Marianne. There's no words.
I think there's more personality disorders out there than there ever have been in our lifetime.
Yeah.
That's my theory, I think, because of all of.
And like an evil blend.
Yes.
Because a lot of mentally sick people would never do things like this. So there's such an evilness combined, that and also this Amy Serlin would always, this attorney for my daughter, oh my God, would stand up in court and talk about that my daughter has a small stature. No, my daughter always had like more of an average stature. She was very thin, but her grandmother her paternal grandmother was like that. She said they would call her olive oil when she was a kid because like she hated food and she wouldn't eat much and she was a little skinny pickle. And that was my daughter. And so they accused me of starving her. And oh my God, it's just complete. And this Amy Serlin would stand up and say her stature, and I'm like,
Yeah,
why don't you look in a full-length mirror? You're talking about my daughter's stature? When this Amy Serlin comes up to my chest,
terrible.
she's doing great.
Oh,
And I know wasn't. All this, she would stand up in court, she's doing great. She don't want to come home. She don't want her family. And I knew that wasn't true. So hearing that was like, oh God, I hope this demon gets the C word we were talking about.
mm-hmm.
Hmm. But everyone's gonna know. I don't think she wants to go to a reunion because everyone's gonna know what she did. And I have things in writing. And I think her professor's gonna want to know what they graduated, the monster that they graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nobody's fault of her own. And I even told her via email, I says, maybe your mother was neglectful because she never gave you your growth hormone shots.
Mm.
Why are we to blame?
Oh,
What do you want from me? You injected yourself into my life. I didn't want you there.
mm-hmm.
Marianne? So it's like, but with the JCCA, the next time around, I'm going to give more details,
Okay.
or even show certain documents. But this Amy Serlin knew that she was manhandled in New Jersey by this ugly monster that she's living with, this male. I wouldn't say man, he's not a man, this male creature. We actually have a nickname for him, which is better suitable. It's Ariel Castro.
Mm.
Remember the one that held those girls for 10 years, the 3 girls?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. He is a taller Ariel Castro.
Mm.
Right. And she knew what happened, and yet she left my daughter in that house.
Mm.
The judge knew too. I'm sure they're better friends than we think. They left my daughter in that house. We cried out to JCCA. We didn't go there talking gibberish.
Mm-hmm.
We said, please help her. We'd show them things. They left my daughter in that house. This Judge Richter, not Judge Richter, we call him Mr. He's not a judge anymore. He should have never been a judge. I wouldn't trust him to work anywhere. He's not good enough to clean toilets in a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone's going to know what he's involved with. He's a CEO of JCCA, a statement. We help families. Oh my God, you lying, ugly thing, you. And he's another one who gives a bad name to gay people because he's gay. And I resent that because
Mm-hmm.
one of my good friends, he's gay.
Mm-hmm.
So what nerve? What nerve? The lies and the falsehoods and, oh Lord.
Boy, you have so much on your plate.
And then some.
Then some. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I know a lot of people know how they are, but they wrote their own constitution. They have no respect for the Constitution. They spit on the Constitution. They threw it out the window. And I want to tell them that I would like their version of the Constitution. I'm curious to see it. I want to see it.
Most definitely.
I guess if I want to get it from a file, I have to go through the gates of hell to obtain it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's where I have to go to obtain it. And I guess I'm not going there, but yeah, they will have to be taken care of for what they did.
And I want to again have you back on for an update because I know your daughter's going
Absolutely.
down there to Florida. So when,
Right.
I also
right.
wanted to add that I did have you on my podcast, season 3, episode 156 and episode 189, if anyone would like to go back and listen to those.
Mhm.
But Dari, don't jump off.
No.
Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. Please join us again here with Dari Langone in the future and other guests. Thank you for this update.
Thanks a lot, Marianne.